The first time I saw something I couldn't explain, I was 9 years old, standing in my grandmother's kitchen, watching her make soup. She stopped mid stir and looked toward the hallway leading to the bedrooms. Her face went pale, not the kind of pale you get when you're startled, but the kind that comes from recognition, from knowing exactly what's coming and being powerless to stop it. She told me to go outside and play. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking so badly the ladle clattered against the pot. I didn't argue. Children know when adults are truly afraid. We sense it the way animals sense earthquakes. Something in the air changes. The pressure drops. The world holds its breath. I went outside, but I didn't play. I pressed my face against the kitchen window and watched. My grandmother stood perfectly still, facing the dark hallway. She was speaking, but I couldn't hear the words through the glass. Her lips moved in a rhythm that seemed wrong, too slow, too deliberate, like she was reciting something from memory. Then the lights went out, not just in the kitchen, but everywhere. The street lights, the neighbor's porch light, even the glow from the television in the living room across the street. Everything went dark at once, as if someone had thrown a switch on the entire block. When the lights came back, 30 seconds later, my grandmother was on the floor. The doctor said it was a stroke, quick and painless, but I knew better. I had seen her face in that final moment before the darkness. She wasn't having a stroke, she was being taken. I'm telling you this because you need to understand that I didn't choose this life chose me. Some people are born with perfect pitch or photographic memory. I was born with something else, a sensitivity to things that exist just beyond the edge of normal perception, things that most people spend their entire lives pretending don't exist. My name is Marcus Webb, and for the past 7 years I've worked for a division of the Federal Bureau of Investigation that doesn't appear in any organizational chart. We have no public budget, no congressional oversight, no official name. Internally, we call ourselves the Blackwood Division, after the abandoned sanitarium in West Virginia where we're headquartered. The building was chosen specifically because it sits on land that was considered cursed by 3 different Native American tribes. Cursed land, it turns out, makes an excellent buffer against certain types of incursions. If you're wondering why the FBI would need a paranormal division, the answer is simpler than you might think. People disappear. They disappear in ways that don't make sense. They disappear from locked rooms and moving vehicles and crowded subway platforms. They disappear, leaving behind blood and strange symbols, and sometimes nothing at all. Local police investigate. They find no evidence, no suspects, No explanations. The cases go cold. The files get archived. The families never get answers. That's where we come in. We investigate the cases that can't be solved, the ones that make veteran detectives request transfers and make forensic specialists start drinking. We don't solve them in the traditional sense. We don't make arrests or file charges. What we do is contain, document, prevent, and survive. That last part is harder than it sounds. There are rules in the Blackwood Division. Not guidelines or suggestions, but rules. Absolute and unbreakable. You follow them or you die. Sometimes you follow them and still die, but your odds improve significantly if you pay attention. I learned the rules from Agent Patricia Vance. She was my training officer when I joined 7 years ago. 53 years old with gray hair, she kept in a severe bun and eyes that had seen too much to ever fully warm again. She'd been with the division for 22 years. That made her the longest serving active agent in our history. Most don't last 5. The first thing she told me was that everything I thought I knew about the supernatural was wrong. Ghosts aren't dead people. Demons aren't fallen angels. The things we deal with don't fit into any religious or cultural framework because they existed before religion, before culture, before humanity learned to speak and tell stories around fires. We gave them names and shapes because our minds couldn't process what they really were. We turned chaos into characters. It was the only way to stay sane. The entities we deal with are more like forces of nature. Hurricanes don't hate you when they destroy your home. Earthquakes don't target specific buildings out of malice. The things in the darkness are the same way. They operate according to their own logic, their own physics. Understanding that logic is the key to surviving them. That's what the rules are for. They're not arbitrary restrictions designed to make our jobs harder. They're patterns we've identified through decades of observation and sacrifice. Ways of behaving that reduce the likelihood of drawing attention, of becoming a target, of ending up like the people in our case files. Rule 1 is the most important. Never be alone in the dark. Not for any reason. Not for any length of time. The entities we hunt are drawn to isolation. They feed on it. A person alone in darkness is a beacon, a signal fire announcing vulnerability. We work in pairs at minimum. We carry multiple light sources, flashlights with backup batteries, chemical glow sticks that don't require electricity, matches in waterproof containers. If you find yourself alone and your light fails, you make noise. You sing, you shout, you recite the alphabet backward. Anything to fill the silence, because silence is where they live. Rule 2. concerns documentation. Everything gets written down: names, dates, locations, witness statements, evidence photographs. Every victim we identify gets a file, and every file gets updated and reviewed annually. This isn't bureaucracy, it's protection. The entities we face consume identity. They erase people from existence. They want their victims forgotten. Documentation is defiance. It says this person existed. This person mattered. You cannot have them completely because we remember. Agent Vance told me about Rule 2 while showing me the archive room. Rows of filing cabinets stretching into shadows that seem deeper than they should be. Thousands of names, thousands of stories. She pulled a file at random and read me the first page. Jennifer Castillo, age 34, elementary school teacher, disappeared from her classroom during a fire drill. 23 students saw her walk toward the supply closet. None of them saw her come out. The closet was empty when they checked. No other exits, no explanation. We never found Jennifer Castillo, but we remember her. That matters more than you might think. Rule 3 is harder to follow because it doesn't always make sense until it's too late. Never acknowledge them directly. This isn't about denial or pretending they're not there. It's about preserving the barrier between their world and ours. Acknowledgement is invitation. It gives them shape, definition, a place to land. Picture a blank canvas of reality. Mentioning them is like sketching outlines in pencil. Engage long enough, and they'll color themselves in. New agents struggle with this one, especially after their first real encounter. When they see something they can't explain and feel the need to describe it. Capture it. Give it a name. That's instinct. But with what we face, naming is binding. Not for them. For you. I made the mistake once. My second assignment was in a town near the Allegheny Forest. We were investigating a string of disappearances. 7 people in 11 days. No bodies, no signs of struggle, no common thread between the victims. The only thing we had was a child's drawing left behind in one victim's apartment, tucked between the pages of a recipe book. It showed a stick figure standing in a forest with a shadow behind it. The shadow had antlers, no eyes, no mouth, just an unending blank face. Beneath it, the child had scratched a single word: hollow. I said the word out loud in front of the picture. Vance snapped her head toward me with a look I'll never forget. Her calm, rigid training demeanor melted into real fear. Panic, even. She tore the drawing out of my hands and shoved it face down into a steel evidence folder. You don't say it, she hissed. Ever. You describe what it does, where it's been. never what it looks like, never what someone else called it. That frees it. Of course, by that point, I'd already said the name. That night, I woke up in my motel room gasping, drenched in sweat. The air ice cold around me, despite the heater being broken in the on position. There were footprints in the carpet, dark soot-gray impressions burned into the shag, like ash pressed into fabric. Huge impressions, whose, from the dresser to my bedside, then back again. Vance didn't scold me the next morning. She just tossed me a pack of salt and said, "Line the windows, then come downstairs. We've got a name to forget." The thing about these rules, it isn't just following them, it's believing in them. We've had agents follow protocol to the letter and still get taken because deep down, they thought the rules were superstition, psychological safeguards, like carrying a rabbit's foot or avoiding ladders. Those agents don't make it to the 5-year pin. Look, I'm not a religious man, but working in this division, you start to understand that belief isn't about faith, it's about reality construction. If enough people agree on something's power, its pattern, it becomes real in a tangible way. That's why the rituals matter. Why salt lines and iron objects aren't just folklore to us. They're existence management tools. Agent Luke Halvorsen didn't buy into any of it. He treated the protocols like hoops to jump through, red tape. Brilliant CSI background, worst attitude. He joined a field team in Tallahassee investigating the Kepler Hotel case. 5 guests gone missing in 5 weeks, each from room 413. No connection, no overlap. Surveillance footage would glitch whenever they walked inside. EMF readings off the charts. The local agents had boarded the room off. Halverson decided to go inside alone. He came back out, but it wasn't him. I'll never forget the smell, the way the air tasted different when he passed us in the hall, like copper and burnt sugar. We asked questions, normal ones, harmless ones. "You okay? Find anything?" And he answered, mostly normal, but he blinked too often and too slowly, like he was remembering how to move his body. At the next all-agent anchor session, he couldn't recite the victims' names, just stared at the list with a look like he was reading a foreign language. That's Rule 4, anchoring. Every week, we gather and speak the names of the victims. Out loud, together. It sounds small, but it's not. These creatures we hunt, they despise memory. It's agony to them. They erase, devour, desecrate. But what they can't do is endure remembrance. We act as anchors. We hold on. Halverson started bleeding from the nose during that session. Left halfway through, muttering about a headache. He was placed on indefinite psych leave the next day. Disappeared from his home 2 nights later. All signs of forced entry, family photos unframed, names scratched out from the wallet in his dresser. No one says the name 413 anymore. That room was bricked off and the hotel condemned. But we remember him. Not whatever walked out of that room, but the man who walked in. That's how we fight back. Which brings me to the last rule, Rule 5. The one woven through all the others. Never forget what waits beyond the veil. You think it's just a poetic reminder, but Vance clarified for me before she retired. They're testing us, she said, always probing, seeing how close they can get, how many details we'll ignore, how much static we'll accept before we question the signal. Her cigarette burned low in her hand. Your job isn't to catch the monster, it's to stop the monster from crossing over, from taking root. Because once enough people see it, dream about it, name it. She looked up at me, her eyes hard. It becomes real, because that's the scary part. These entities don't just exist. They expand. They adapt. Every time someone new sees them, something inside them absorbs the concept like a virus absorbs code. Belief is its own invitation. That's why we scrub internet discussions, scrub social posts, downvote threads, interfere with independent investigators, because when the wrong story spreads, when someone with too much imagination stitches together the shape, it's like placing a hand on glass and something from the other side reaches back. This job isn't just policing, it's containment, but not of entities, of ideas. That's why I'm careful, why I burn my notes every month, why I speak their names only in anchor sessions, why I sleep with the lights on and refuse to work cases without backup, why I keep the mask beside my bed. Rule 6. Unofficial. But Vance told me before she left, if you ever see yourself staring at you from the dark, don't blink. It only replaces you if you blink. That rule saved me once. That story, I'll tell you that next. It started in Des Moines, 3 winters ago. We had a case flagged by the Pattern Recognition Branch. 3 disappearances across 3 city blocks, each happening exactly 3:03 a.m., spaced 5 days apart. No connection between victims. One barista, one accountant, one man walking his dog. All pulled from reality without a trace. But the strangest part, every one of them had activated a security light or motion camera. Yet nothing was seen. No blur, no silhouette. Just this strange shimmer in the air, like heat distortion, but during a blizzard in below zero temps. The reports were dismissed locally. Faulty cameras, glare, the usual. We knew better. I was paired with Agent Lin, a soft-voiced analyst with a background in quantum probabilities. She didn't believe in ghosts, demons, spirits, only systems that hadn't been properly mapped yet. Her apartment looked like a spreadsheet had exploded and taken physical form. She called anomalies spatiotemporal leakages. That night, we set up in the fourth predicted drop zone, a stretch of alleyway between a bookstore and an abandoned daycare. We hid a dozen analog sensors, audio tethers, EMF traps, layered signal recorders. If anything shifted in that space, we'd catch it. Midnight came, nothing. 1 a.m., static rise on one channel, but nothing definitive. At 2:48, the air got cold. Not midwinter cold, dead space cold. The kind of cold that you feel in your teeth. I reached for my infrared goggles. That's when I saw me. Across the alley, maybe 30 feet away, standing in perfect darkness. A figure. Same suit, same stance, same hair. And the worst part, he blinked. Not like a normal person blinks. It was slow, deliberate, off rhythm, as though it were practicing human motion and getting close, but not quite right. Agent, Lynn whispered behind me. I didn't look away. Couldn't. Whatever that thing was, it had my form, but not my presence. Its limbs were just a fraction too long. Its silhouette shimmered slightly, like it couldn't hold itself together for long. And in the blink of that doppelganger, I saw the abyss. Not fear, not hatred, just hunger. Cold, monotone hunger. I remembered what Vance said. If you ever see yourself, don't blink. It only replaces you if you blink. So I didn't. Every second was a war. My eyes stung, tears welled. My lashes froze, but I stared. It stared. A mimicry duel between me and something that looked like skin stretched over a concept. Then a sound, small, soft, nearly lost in the frost. Lynn's hand found mine, pulling gently. And just like that, it disappeared. Collapsed inward like a flicker in badly compressed video. Gone. What the hell was that? She asked. Breath visible in the freezing air. I couldn't answer. Not right then. Because I still wasn't sure. We didn't know it yet. But that was event one of what would be labeled as Incident M12 Rhythm, a pattern entity that repeats and solidifies as more people notice it. It's not a thing, it's a possibility anchored in form by pattern observation. In simple terms, the more we look, the more it exists. That's why I haven't written reports about it. Not fully. Why I've never described it in official filings. Why this version of the story replaces half of the facts. What I saw wasn't just something pretending to be me. It was a template, searching for symmetry. The longer we observed, the more it downloaded, which is why we deployed the cipher protocol. Emotionless witnesses replaced local law enforcement. Memory drugs for incident victims. Every camera was pulled manually. All physical, no digital records allowed. Because that's what rhythm needs. Digital reflection. It propagates in screens, echoes through video. That's why it blurs in analog and forms in MP4. It likes symmetry and attention. Rule 7. One that we learn the hard way. You don't replay forbidden footage, even if you saw something, especially if you saw yourself. I used to think that surviving meant not dying, but there are worse things than death in this job. I've seen agents lose their shadow and never get it back, walk into rooms and leave different. I've worked with people who speak backwards in dreams and wake up with burned tongues. Every case takes something: time, sanity, memory, sometimes more. Agent Mallory was one of the best. Fast talker, sharp thinker, always walked like she was 5 steps ahead of the conversation. We got called into a Tennessee town where red doors were appearing overnight. Actual full-size doors in strange places. One showed up wedged in the middle of a public fountain. Another embedded in a tree, a third blocking the road, but no hinges, no seams, just solid red doors that smelled faintly of iron and rot. Mallory didn't hesitate. She touched one. Rule 8. Never touch the anomaly directly, only through gloves, tethers, or raw copper. She forgot, or she didn't believe it applied. The door opened. Nothing was behind it, just blackness. But her body stiffened. She whispered 7 words I'll never forget. He is coming through the wrong side. Then she vanished. No scream, no flash, no effect. Just gone. We closed the town down, sealed the space, burned the surrounding 12 feet with white phosphor, called it a gas leak. But I still see red doors in my sleep. Random, contextless, like reminders or invitations. Sometimes people ask why I stay, why I haven't walked away from the Blackwood division, taken another identity, retired to somewhere the cold doesn't scratch your bones. The truth is, I've thought about it. I've packed a bag more than once, stared at my badge for a long time while the day's case file burned into my eyes. But I remember Vance's final report before she retired. The veil is thinning. We don't stop them. We pull the veil tighter. We hold the line not because we expect to win, but so the rest of the world doesn't notice we're already losing. It sounds bleak, but it's not. Because every saved person counts. Even the forgotten ones. Especially the forgotten. That's how we win, not with guns, but with memory. Don't ever assume you'll be ready. You won't be. You'll be tired, sleep deprived, clocked out, brushing your teeth, and then it'll hit. A smell, the flickering of a light, the wrong reflection in a hallway mirror, a name whispered that no one should know. And when that moment comes, you don't ask if it's real. You run the checklist: light, sound, partner, memory, ritual, blank mask in hand. Because if they have noticed you, they're already closer than you think. So sleep light, remember often, and whatever you do, don't break the rules. There's a reason we don't publish our losses. Because the moment the patterns reach the public, they start echoing. That's the true horror of what we've discovered. Awareness is contagion. It's why no one knows who we are. Why our division isn't listed in any federal matrix, budget spreadsheet, or personnel count. We're not secret because we're hiding from the public. We're secret because you're safer that way. There was a man in Michigan, professor, fringe academic. He somehow accessed redacted sections of our archived case studies through a Freedom of Information loophole. Patterns marked as deprecated but not deleted. We only noticed because he began referencing real cases in thinly veiled horror stories. Blog posts labeled fiction but written with terrifying precision. By the time we traced the source, he had 36 followers repeating certain symbols online, sketching glyphs he shouldn't know, discussing facelessness like it was just another trope. That group doesn't exist anymore. Neither does he. You think that's evil? I don't blame you. But truth is, we weren't trying to silence him. We were trying to keep you safe, because once those shapes are deciphered, spoken aloud, mimicked in writing, they begin listening back. Which brings me to the last thing I'll share. Not a case file, not a rule. A moment. 6 nights ago, I woke up to the sound of whispering. At first, I thought it was dream bleed. Happens sometimes. You snap out of a nightmare and the dialogue still lingers. But this, it continued, clear, on repeat. He knows. He knows. He knows. From the hallway. I live alone. That shouldn't be possible. I grabbed my flashlight, mask in hand. Quiet. Careful. My apartment was empty, door locked. No signs of entry, except one thing. A photo on the fridge that hadn't been there before. It was me, sleeping. Timestamp, 3:03 a.m. My window was behind me in the photo. Curtains drawn open. And in the window's reflection, a second me, standing, smiling, wearing the same mask I had in my hand. I moved out an hour later, burned every object that had ever been mirrored, changed my name again, and I haven't blinked since, because I know what waits, because I remember. because I'm still alive, and because I follow the rules